I must say, I have the privilege of presenting the next speaker. The next speaker is Sicarú Vásquez Orozco. They will be presenting Latinx bodies and dancing and dance history. Sicarú has a bachelor's degree in art history, master's degree in art studies, and PhD in history and critical theory of art from the Universidad Iberoamericana. From her dance training, she has developed research on dance representation and imaginaries. Along with their relationship between dance and art history, Dr. Vásquez has conducted research stays at the City College of New York, Ceiba Gráfica, and different collections in Mexico. She is head of the Dance Studies Seminar Art Ibero, a member of the Dance Studies Association and Dance Council in Mexico. She is currently a university professor and academic technician in the art department, and she has collaborated as a registrar at the National Museum of Art. And Sicarú plays a very important and pivotal role in Dancing with Decolonization. She has, I don't know what we would do without you, Sicarú. She is the reason our Spanish iteration is going ahead and continuing. And yeah, I'm so happy to have her here, and I'm so excited to hear what she has to say. Go ahead, Sicarú.
Thank you, Lisa. I don't know if you can hear me well. Yes, everything's good. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. It's been amazing to work with you guys in this third edition, and I'm so happy to be presenting today. I had so much fun last year, and I really love being here in this third conference. And oh my God, it's a great responsibility to be here and closing this amazing day. I really loved all the talks and the presentations, so I'll try my best to be good for this last presentation, and also a link for tomorrow's presentation in Spanish. I'm going to talk about Latin bodies, and I'm going to share my screen. So, okay, here we go. So first, I would like to thank everyone in the Dancing Decolonization team. Thank you for letting me present this part of my research. And as an art historian, I must say that images and visual representations are essential. And they're essential for me and for dance studies, because since we're here thinking about how to decolonize our bodies, we must also think how to decolonize what we see and what we perceived in dance. So I'm going to say something very quick before I continue. So since we're in a dancing and decolonization conference, I have focused this talk in Latinx bodies, and I'm just adding this X because in Spanish, my native language, we must make the difference to include all kinds of gender. And with that established, I must continue. So this X has been very difficult from some Spanish speakers and some Spanish scholars, because they say that they are that we are like changing Spanish, but I think as we are decolonizing, we have to do it. So the representation of Latino or Latinx bodies has been shaped through history. In the case of Mexico, the stereotype has been shaped ever since the 16th century. The beginning of the viceregal period, as the mestizaje, and I'm going to say it in Spanish, began with the whole combination of races during this territory where I am in Mexico City. And these racial combinations went through time, and later, all these kind of mixtures were delivered, other kinds of bodies, colors, and traditions that became part of the Latin American stereotypes. I see that there are a lot of Latin American people here, and maybe when you arrive to another country, they tell you, oh, let's dance, or let's make something, or let's do something because you're a Latino person. So there are all kinds of stereotypes that we have. And for some time in dance history, we were not part of it. So this is why I choose to talk about this. These imaginaries fulfilled with the mentioned categories have been understood from a coloniality point of view. But if we think about how colonialized are our ways of seeing, we must recognize that if we think about Latinx dancers, we recall to how our history and coloniality has portrayed us dancers. When you are involved in the dance world, there are some standard talks and sayings that you usually hear in a ballet room, from the public in the theater and audiences, dance magazines, and social media. These mainly refer to how dancers should look, what clothes should they wear, and what kind of bodies and color they should have. In this context, most images, perspectives, and visual references combine specific types of body and certain ways of looking like a dancer. To focus just on one technique, I must talk about ballet because I have worked just with ballet at this time. But how should we talk about decolonizing ballet images through a Latinx point of view? The perception of the stage bodies, from my perception, requires decolonization. Following Santiago Castro Gomez, who is a decolonization scholar, many forms of study and analysis have remained under the triangular structures of coloniality, being power and knowledge the ones at the top. Due to their very nature of coloniality, the performing arts are processed to require deconstruction. Most of the scholars says that for the female dancing body, perfection and beauty are closely connected to the quality of movement performed, and these types of accessories accomplished ballerinas were such as tutus and ponchos. This thinking concerns coloniality and all information consumed since the 19th century, generating stereotypes, imaginaries, and certain adjectives regarding race, colors, and body types. The purpose of this paper is to analyze how dancing bodies need to be decolonized in Latin America. Following this quote, the following quote, is from a crucial professional school dance in Mexico. This is one of the documents published for applying to the BA in dancing classical and contemporary technique. I'm gonna read the quote. I have translated it. The body figure is one of the most challenging aspects because it depends on the inherited genetic laws. It is measured with parameters or aesthetics that are relatively unified worldwide. The art of classical dance is a visual art, which is why ballet companies tend to have male and female dancers whose body image easily fits into their aesthetics, and to facilitate group dancers to maintain characteristics still of this dance gender. This call for students is the one that they use in order to have this type of body to fit in their school. So they say, the literature they used to ask for the perfect ballet body was written in 1989. So this was titled The Ideal Body, Structure, and Proportions for Classical Ballet. Okay, so regarding academic production, one must look for the most recent publications on this topic and not one from 1989. It is essential to know that the last 30 years have been crucial for body standards in the international ballet world. The school is trying to take as basis of their arguments literature that is no longer actual. And this statement was published by the National School of Dance in Mexico, a country known from the diversity and different heritage. So I'm sorry if there's anyone from that school here, but I needed to put it in order to continue my presentation. During the last decades, many discussions in the dance world have been about how ballerinas should look, as I was saying. Companies worldwide have included dancers different from other white canon by joining their companies. Harlem Dance Theater, and other companies in the United States and Europe began accepting dancers from different ethnicities, sometimes making it look like there was some kind of quota that you needed to fill. And they start taking in Latin American people, African American people, etc. In this context and inclusion, most Latinx were minorities, having one or two dancers that had the opportunity to be trained abroad and certain body types, abilities, etc. Before I continue, it is essential to say that there is a fine line between being trained and being extremely skinny. Each body has a distinctive heritage, DNA, and anatomy. For example, there was this interview to Miguel Cabrera, also known as the National Ballet of Cuba historian. He is like the one historian, and you have to go to him if you need to know anything about the National Ballet of Cuba. I also translated this interview, and I will read it. This is the interview in the minute 27 and 27 to Miguel Cabrera. They ask us, where are the blacks? In Cuban ballet, color is talent. How many white ballerinas don't become prima ballerinas? It would be worth pointing out that the opposite is not asked here, which is rather more questionable. Today, we are having what I call, and I'm gonna say it in Spanish, mulatocracia. Why? Because they are going out with a physique. Ballet has a canon and an aesthetic. Not everyone who wants can become a prima ballerina. It is not because of color, and he laughs. It is because they're trained, their talent, and aesthetics, and their physique. So this gets into our minds, and just think that from a Latin American way of thinking and a Caribbean way of thinking, Cuba is the only country that, thanks to Alicia Alonso, could fit a Cuban ballet technique that was made thinking about their anatomy, their needs, and their ways of movement. So getting to read these types of statements from the ballet historian, it makes us think again that decolonization is a necessity. But now, how to decolonize not only dance, but also the perception of dance historian, dancers, and teachers. Following Ebony Williams, who is one of the Beyonce's dancers, it says, having more diversity in color and culture will change body standards. But how do Latinx bodies get into this dancing context without ending up with discrimination regarding color, body shape, technique, training, and economic possibilities? I mean, if you're a Mexican dancer and you don't get to study abroad, or you don't have like the perfect body and the perfect technique, you can dance professionally. Even though if you don't have certain height, you can dance professional. Since the 19th century, ballet publicity in Mexico was just for communities, elite groups that could travel, read, attend balls, dance classes, and afford clothes. In this case, my Spanish came out, sorry. In this case, trained dancers should also fit the ballerina representation standards, and they should be thin, ethereal, and long-left, just as the still fit. In this case, in this case, it wasn't easy. During the 19th century, there were few men, and suddenly, with wars, women start performing female roles. Meanwhile, during the 20th century, there were more successful men were more successful regarding job offers, technical possibilities, etc. It also right now it is still easier for men to dance than for women. In that same 20th century, female dancers were developing a joint need to have more earnings. For example, a ballet dancer who could not afford to live just with a dancer job, with a ballet job, and they needed to learn other styles such as ballroom, Latin mixtures that require dancing, singing, and making shows during nights and clubs. Now you might be thinking about rumberas, tiples, or dancers with wide hips, legs, and lots of makeup. Many Latin American dancers began to be identified as the rumberas, salsa dancers, cumbia dancers, and other types of technique that later became more body friendly. Now you can see that these women were able to have their own body and in other types of dancings, but maybe they were trying also to be ballet dancers. Also, this happened with modern dance and later with contemporary dancers. They tell them that they have another kind of body that maybe would be easier if they could dance contemporary. And still, right now, it's one of the things that they tell them when they don't have the skinny body type. So it is common to hear that you need to be skinny or tall enough, etc. And you should try another type of dancing, what I was saying. In Latin America, we have grown to believe that bodies should fit in a Caucasic model, not only from newspapers, magazines, and from the long 19th century, but also from plastic artworks, photography, cinema, and social media. Latinx dancers believe that their bodies as the others in this colonialized ballet world. Bodies that don't fit the standards or that should be highly skinny to dance, or maybe could never dance professionally because of their height, hips, bone structure, color, etc. I'm not saying that ballet or dance itself should be completely different or that there should be not trained bodies, because this is one of the things that ballet teachers tell me. Oh, you need to be trained and then you will have the perfect body. But I believe that all kinds of body with proper training and careful teaching could be great dancers in a full art and with a full artistry. Following Nelson Maldonado Torres with the decolonization turn, this does not mean that there are no coincidence with modern or postmodern ideas, or they are consciously taken up again. It doesn't mean that decolonial thought may have modern and postmodern elements, but these are not only the most central or constant ones. On the other hand, it must also be recognized that some ideas in modernity and postmodernity can refer to contributions to the colonial thought, which means there are elements within them to exploit them in decolonization. So it doesn't mean that we have to throw away everything with coloniality, but we need to know which types of elements we need in order to decolonize. Dance coloniality in Latinx bodies should start with critical thinking about our imaginaries and ways of representing our identities. Knowing that Latinx does not mean that you should look a certain way, that you must wear specific clothes, or that your body should look like something or someone else. But how Latinx bodies could be included in ballet without discrimination based on color, body shape, technique, training, and economic possibilities, we must pay attention to dance education. Consider the coloniality in dance training as a must. We also have to re-educate our teachers and ourselves. Every type of body could fit into a ballet body, which means that your technique, teaching, and directing are the ones that had to be modified in order to take care of our dancing bodies. The relationship between decolonial thought and modern and postmodern ideas in the context of dance has to do with reinterpreting images instead of reproducing them. Learning that dancing is a way of transforming lives, expressing and working with our bodies. Although small and slow, these steps would lead with time to a more inclusive ballet world or dancing world itself. Returning to the beginning of this talk, why talk about those rethinking the inclusion of Latinx bodies in dance and dance history? Because just talking about it makes it visible. It is already a step in a long way of decolonizing dancing. From a Latin American point of view, I want to end this brief talk with a picture published by a company in Mexico City. So I'm going to translate it for those who don't speak Spanish. And the step one is how to have the perfect ballet body or the perfect dancing body. And the second image says, first, you need to have a body. And second, you need to dance. So thank you very much. I'm going to end this here, and I'm going to share also these call for papers that I'm directing, and you can send papers in Spanish or in English. It is open until August 18th. So maybe if you have already done this amazing presentation, you can send something over there. Thank you very much, and that would be all for me.
Thank you, Sika. So it looks like we have about 5 minutes to open the floor for questions if we want to, or discussions, or thoughts, or comments, whatever you'd like.
I actually have a comment or oh wait, there's actually one in here. Let's do this one first.
Yes.
So Masha says, when you say our identity, does that include the identities of the 61 indigenous groups present in Mexico? Do you envision dance decolonization happening in Mexico in a way to value the movement aesthetics of the indigenous groups?
Yes, for sure. I think when I say our identity, I'm talking about all dancing bodies, not thinking about a certain type of bodies. I think that identities, and I think that was a problem with my writing. I meant to say identities, but yes, it is. It regards all kinds of body, all kinds of dancing bodies that we have in all over the world. I use the Mexican example because I'm Mexican, but yes, thank you for your question, Masha.
Okay, now I have a question. So I know, at least in as I've seen in the U.S. and coming out of the U.S., that there have been dance companies that at times either parody ballet, like parody traditional ballet companies, so like La Ballet Trocadero de Monte Carlo, which is like a drag ballet troupe that often makes fun of ballet, and like idealized body types fall within some of the humor that they use. As well as there's another one that I'm not quite remembering, but like there are more ballet companies that are developing with this like concept of alternative body types or engagement with ballet, and moving out like that kind of traditional sphere of what it means to present ballet. Do you often see that, or do you see that much in Mexico at the moment?
Not exactly for Mexican companies, but I am working right now with a radio program, and we have had small independent dancing groups that are trying to fight these ballet stereotypes and dancing stereotypes in all of its ways. But it's more common to have foreign companies coming here to Mexico to present this type of presentations.
think I will open the floor to maybe one more question or comment before we have our closing talk, if that's okay with everyone.
I have one more if no one else is going to jump on it. And that's just because I know so that you do quite a bit of work with dance representation and different modes of art and curational scenes and stuff like that. And I was wondering if you had, I guess maybe more so, if you had come across stuff historically in the past that represents different dancing bodies doing ballet, maybe like a wider variety of bodies that are like actively engaging the practice of ballet than we see in more modern art from like the 1950s onward.
Yes, actually my PhD thesis is about that, so I hope I can publish it soon. And if you read Spanish, I mean, I can send it over to you. But yes, there are so many types of dancing bodies, and I mean, I studied from the 19th century to the 20th, but there are all kinds of dancing bodies. I mean, if you see photographs of the late 19th century, you may see dancers that are they're not so thin, because thin ballet dancer began with Russian ballet, where they were training so hard, and their body became like that, but they were not skinny. And in the late 19th century.